This is Rooney 207. Welcome back. For today's episode, we'll talk about preparing for League of Kingdoms upcoming May 22nd, continent versus continent. So, what I wanted to do is just go over my account and kind of share some of my thought process and how I'm planning to prepare overall for this upcoming continent versus continent. I'll do another video later on actually the treasury and some of the other builds and things like that. We'll kind of walk through it. For the upcoming continent versus continent here, I'm in continent 4, so we're going to be in the major 3, the lowest of the majors. So I think based on the conversations that we've seen in the continent, it'll probably be a pretty friendly continent versus continent, and hopefully it'll be a lot of the first 3 weeks. It'll probably be a lot of monster Spartoids and training, things like that, just typical. And then perhaps the fourth week, I don't know, depending on what the leadership decides on that, we'll just kind of address it. But it's a good opportunity to pick up some Loca and things like that. And also, for speaking with regards to Loca, my intention is to just send it to the Polygon network and potentially just sell it, exchange for Matic, and then buy the Dragos with it. That's kind of my plan if I accumulate enough. It just depends on the amount. I think if you're a larger player, you can convert it to the Ethereum network and then stake it, or pledge, I should say. It's a Loca pledging for your continent. I think there's definitely value, especially if you have a large number of Dragos, or if you're planning to do the high level, the crystal mines and things like that. I think those are pretty useful for the whales or the larger, stronger players that do have those accounts, or if you have enough accounts, significant enough accounts, where you can potentially leverage your Loca pledging. The only thing to consider is the Ethereum. Every exchange is like average $6. So if you're doing the Loca vouchers, that's another $6. The Loca into the Ethereum mainnet, that's another $6. So it's $12. And then if it's your first time staking it or pledging, it's by somewhere around $10 on average, and then every increment is about $6 roughly. So I think if you're just a normal average player, kind of like myself here, so my role in continent versus continent is more support. I don't have the horn. I don't have a lot of max out. I don't have the top city skins. I don't have a lot of the components that you would deem to be. I don't have legendary Dragos. I don't have even 4 of them to be able to defend and things like that, in terms of their being able to put in use in the field or defending the city during continent versus continent event. So my role is typically just the Spartoids, the monsters, and defending the gates and the fortresses and things like that, where leadership needs. So my goal is to be prepared to train as many T5 troops as possible, and then heal, and then send them back as needed where they are. So as you can see here, we've just recently completed one of the events for this week where we had to kill a certain number of troops. So I'm delaying the healing aspect of it to try to get some credit in the continent versus continent, and also kind of to show you. I'm at maximum, almost maximum capacity already, so I'll lose out on the first couple weeks of the continent versus continent to be able to train troops, because we'll probably be at more of a peace with other continents. So the likelihood of me being able to train unless I delete the troops. So I'll try my best to figure out ways, creative ways to kill my troops and also get some points or rewards so that I can do some training. But I'm also limited by the number of troop training speeds that I may have. And also for one of my strategies for continent versus continent is to look for the castles that are sleeping, and so they're maybe off. They might do random teleports or what have you, and then the leadership decides to rally those. So usually I'll support that, and hopefully I've been averaging about 1 to 2 billion in resources every continent versus continent. So we always be able to raid those castles. So it's a good opportunity, and one of my goals is to accumulate the resources from that to help support the cause here. And so I think somewhere my upper limit on my power base is about 175 million or so, give or take. And so I have the max Lord 50, I have VIP 17 and things like that. And in terms of, I have a couple of Dragos here, things like that for my account. And I think what I'm trying to do here is to, as you can see, I'm at level 13. I'm trying to get to the layer 14 where I can actually use three Dragos to mint the resources. So I think it's important to mint away the resources that are in your inventory here. As you can see, I have about 4 billion in resources that I need to mint away because at the end of the day, they're at risk within continent versus continent. And there's been a few in the past that I've kind of fell asleep for whatever duration, and then we're in a zone where an area where I can be rallied and things like that. So I've lost my share of resources that way as well. And then I'm trying to maximize, increase the number of crystals as well. So I'm always short posts continent versus continent because I burn through them. I use them. I try to get the maximum resources possible. So that's one of the goals that I'm trying to get to. And as you can see here, the treasures piece for this one here, I'm pretty far off in terms of being able to maximize. So one of my goals is to continue working towards that. I think working on a couple of these other ones, and hopefully I get lucky too with the gold chest. Still drop them, and sometimes I get the neutral ones, that neutral legendary treasures that I can apply to one of these to kind of max them out. But I did max the Heavenly Berry, so that's pretty useful during continent versus continent event there. Let's see the I and then yeah, my we'll talk about mastery and things like that later. Essentially, the way our continent prepares typically of any continent, the troop mix is 40-40-20 in terms of percentages. 40 for infantry, 40 for archers, and 20% for cavalry. And that's kind of how if you look at it, it's pretty close to what my numbers are typically. I try to get there. And in terms of where I'm just trying to get enough of. So when you look at the speeds here, so I do have a good number of resource tokens, and I'll mint. Once I finish these, I'll mint them. Mint some of these, maybe a third or half, or even more of these. I have pretty a sizable amount of resources here. And in terms of the boosts, I try to get enough of the shields. We don't receive any more of these 1 day shields. These were pre, if your grandfather did, and then now you just get the 8 hours, which is unfortunate. I'm hoping that they'll move more towards like the Rise of Kingdom model. They'll have the 12-hour and the 24 hours and things like that as well, or multi-day shields. Just to, I think it's helpful, especially during home kingdoms. People who go away, your castle will kind of be raided and things like that. So I'm trying to get enough speed. So one of the other things I'm trying to do here is accumulate as many of these 30-day speeds and some of these other ones, and I'll pick up a few more for continent and continent versus continent. And I try to accumulate the ones for troop training, and then the healing, because healing is a lot cheaper. Excuse me. So that's the direction I'm trying to go towards. And so the other thing is the teleports. I try to have enough teleports, alliance teleports, and a lot of these mastery resets. Typically, I use about 6 or 7, so I usually save about 10 of these. And after I accumulate enough, well, what I do with the alliance token, it's a little bit probably a little bit different than some of my peers. I do buy the 3 hour resource from the alliance shop here for the remainder once I've maxed out these alliance tokens and then the mastery reset. So that's one of the other strategies that I'm trying to deploy, and I believe that's pretty much. And oh yeah, my so here's kind of where I'm at. So because of the role that I'm playing, I've completed these for the battle here. So these are all done, the entire set here, and then the other ones I'm working on. It's either trying to wrap up some of these advanced ones. And things like that. I'll work towards them, and then some of the production ones that just mix them. I just kind of got bored, so I'm just all alternating between. And I'm also shifting. One of the strategies that I'm also doing here is that I'm slowly shifting, and I picked a resource, so I'm picking gold actually because gold mines, as you can see here, they're a little bit higher in terms of the power level compared to the other ones. It's 887. So when you look at, let's say, any of the other ones here, that's 700 and something, and then even if you look at the barracks, it's still slightly higher than the barracks. So I think at some point power is important. So it's it's a good discourage. It'll discourage others to at least a smaller number of people to attack your castle. So that's what I'm doing right here is to slowly change all of these during the events that actually benefit the building. Component of it, you can get some rewards. So I'm switching them all to the gold, and then what I'm going to do is maximize the gold production here, and then this way when I'm gathering on the field I can just concentrate on picking up the other three resources. I think stone is the most valuable, the highest demand. Almost everything requires stone and consumes stone. So I think if you're going to focus on one resource, stone's probably a better one. The only disadvantage is that it doesn't give you the extra power boost piece of it. So that's the only thing to consider there. And I think it's, in my case, it's marginal in terms of what I'm able to gather versus production piece. So I just chose to gather instead. So I just wanted to kind of give you a preview into my thoughts and strategy on my role to support the continent 4 in our upcoming continent versus continent on May 22nd. And if you have any questions or things like that, just let me know, and we'll just go from there. I'll do another one for Dragos as well. Some of my strategy on Dragos and some of my thoughts and frameworks around that. And thank you so much for visiting, and I'll talk to you soon.